Hello. In this video, we are going to talk about the school called Pragmatism. In the successive lectures, we will discuss about each of the pragmatic thinkers. In this video, our focus is to look at the general ideas in the school of Pragmatism. Pragmatism is relatively a new school, a recent school. It is a school of the 20th century. In fact, it emerged in the United States as a dominant school in the first quarter of the 20th century. This school is based on the principle that the usefulness, workability, and practicality of ideas, policies, and proposals are the criteria of their merit. It stresses the priority of action over doctrine, of experience over fixed principles, and it holds that ideas borrow their meanings from their consequences and their truths from their verification. This does not mean that ideas are not important or principles are not important. It is a matter of emphasis and priority. Ideas are only important insofar as they are instruments and plans of action. Therefore, ideas are essentially instrumental in character. Achieving results, in other words, getting things done in business and public affairs, is often considered to be pragmatic. Sometimes people even give a more harsh and brutal connotation to this term. When people give such connotation, they imply that pragmatism exercises power in the successful pursuit of practical and specific objectives. In our everyday conversation, people do speak about American politics is often pragmatic, or American economic policies have this pragmatic character. In any case, the term pragmatic carries the stamp of justification. Something is justified from the pragmatic point of view if it is proved to be successful. But the term pragmatism is not all that new. It is as old as the Greek language. In Greek, the word pragma literally means action or even affair. In the year 118 BCE, before Common Era, the Greek historian Polybius called his own writings pragmatic. By this, he meant that his works were intended to be instructive and useful to his readers. One of the leading American pragmatists by name William James said these following words. I quote him. The term pragmatic is derived from the same Greek word pragma, meaning action, from which the words practice and practical come. The American logician Charles Peirce is also another pioneering pragmatist. He may probably have been the first one to use this word pragmatic to designate a specific philosophical thinking. But Peirce had Immanuel Kant's German term rather than the Greek word in mind. The German word pragmatisch refers to something that is experimental, something that is empirical, something that is a purposive thought based on and applying to experience. So much about the term pragmatism. So while it has a Greek origin, one of the leading pragmatic thinkers, Peirce, probably used it more in terms of empirical or experimental ideas or purposive thought, they are based on lived experience, or they can also be applied to experience. Now let us focus on some of the major theses of pragmatic or philosophical pragmatism. We can identify 6 fundamental theses of pragmatic philosophy. We shall try to elaborate each one of them, little briefly though. But we cannot say any one pragmatic thinker would have had all these theses in his writings. None of them would have subscribed to all of them. We cannot even say they all agree on certain points. There are various interpretations that different pragmatists come with. That depends on their general thinking or the tone they give to the philosophy. However, these 6 fundamental theses are very pertinent when we discuss pragmatism as a school of philosophy. The first thesis is pragmatism is a response to idealism and evolutionary theory. Pragmatists often emphasized the plastic nature of reality and the practical function of knowledge as an instrument for adapting to reality and controlling it. In other words, nature does not have any fixed reality. There is nothing fixed about reality. It has a plastic nature. It has sense of adaptation. And depending on the knowledge that we have, we may be able to control it. Therefore, change is considered as an inevitable condition of life. Therefore, pragmatists called attention to the ways in which change can be directed for certain benefits, whether it is individual or social. So this is how they have been inspired by a certain evolutionary theory. The second thesis is that pragmatism was a continuation of critical empiricism. It is a continuation of critical empiricism because it emphasizes the priority of actual experience over certain fixed principles that are non-experimental, or in philosophical jargon, what we call a priori reasoning in critical investigation. According to William James, this means that the pragmatist, in his own words, turns away from abstraction and insufficiency. The pragmatist turns away from verbal solutions, from bad a priori reasons, from fixed principles, closed systems, and pretended absolutes and origins. It is not enough to say from what the pragmatist turns away, but it is also important to focus on what a pragmatist turns towards. According to William James again, a pragmatist turns towards concreteness and adequacy, towards facts and towards action. So this is one of the important theses of pragmatism. The third thesis of pragmatism is that the pragmatic meaning of an idea, belief, or proposition is said to reside in the distinct class of specific experimental or practical consequences that result from the use, application, or entertainment of an idea. Peirce, for example, said that our idea of anything is our idea of its sensible effects. We don't have an idea without the sensible effects. If at all we have an idea about anything, it is based on the effects that we can experience through our senses. For example, two propositions for which no different effects can be discerned have merely a verbal appearance of dissimilarity, and a proposition for which no definite theoretical or practical consequences can be determined is, for Peirce, pragmatically meaningless. So the very idea of meaning is based on what we experience as effects of any particular idea. The fourth thesis is, while most philosophers have defined truth in terms of beliefs' coherence within a pattern of other beliefs, or some have defined it as correspondence between a proposition and an actual state of affairs, pragmatism comes with slightly a different approach. Pragmatism holds truth, like that of meaning, is to be found in the process of verification. The general epistemological approach towards truth in terms of coherence and correspondence is therefore challenged. Truth is simply a matter of verification of a proposition or the successful working of an idea. This is very different from the traditional epistemology, traditional theory of knowledge. To put it in a blunt way, truth is that which works. So truth does not need to have any correspondence to the actual state of affairs, nor it is to have a certain coherence within our pattern of thinking or beliefs. Truth merely is what works. The fifth thesis of pragmatism is as follows. Along the line of the pragmatist understanding of meaning and truth, pragmatists also interpret ideas as instruments and plans of action. Traditionally, ideas have been conceived as images and even copies of impressions or of external objects. The pragmatic theories emphasize the functional character of ideas. So therefore, ideas are not to be conceived as images and copies of impressions or of external objects. They have certain functions. Ideas therefore are suggestions and anticipations of possible conduct. They are hypotheses or forecasts of what will result from a given action. In other words, ideas are ways of organizing behavior in the world rather than replicas of the world. They don't serve as giving impression or image of the world. They are merely helping us to organize our behavior. Therefore, ideas, if you can use an analogy, can be thought of as tools. Just like tools are useful, valuable, ideas can also be useful and valuable. They can be efficient. Whether they are efficient, useful, or valuable depends on the role that they play in contributing to the successful direction of behavior. If our behavior is successful, or at least it moves towards a successful direction, then ideas are useful or valuable. So they are merely tools for our ways of behaving. The last thesis about which is very important in pragmatism is about its methodology. Pragmatism is a broad philosophical attitude. It is a broad philosophical attitude because it enables us to form concepts, hypotheses, and theories and their justification. For a pragmatist, the interpretation of reality done by any individual is motivated and justified by considerations of their efficacy and their utility in serving his own interests and needs. What is true of individual can also be said of the society. If a particular society interprets reality in a particular way, they are motivated and justified by how much they can be helpful, valuable, useful in serving the interests of a particular society. So far we have discussed about these general ideas of pragmatism. We shall later in the successive lectures spend time on some of the important philosophers. At least we will be talking about three of them: Charles Sanders Peirce, James Williams, and John Dewey. Thank you for your kind attention.